let's define a car class to represent the car. For example, we need make of the car and the year of the car car was built, and then we have another information. For example, number of wheels. For example, that's what you want to implement. Then we are going to do many things there. But as we find, we have defined the vehicle class already, which holds make and year. And when you define car, we can reuse the vehicle already defined. The only thing we need to add is a number of wheels. That's just new thing which was not present in the vehicle. Then how can we reuse an existing class like a vehicle? Then is define a subclass of a vehicle. We can make a car class as a subclass of a vehicle using keyword extends. After that, specify existing class name. Then the car class becomes a subclass of a vehicle. When you have a subclass in the memory diagram wise as follows. If I create a new car with a C1 as a variable, and then the car object is created, and the C1 is holding address of that. Then internally, inside the car, you will see a footprint that is exactly the same as a vehicle. So inside the car object, you will find the footprint for vehicle class. There you have a make and the year, and then the one you add in car is outside this vehicle area, and another variable is created, which is a number of wheels present outside the vehicle area. So subclass in terms of memory size is bigger than superclass because subclass should hold everything inside of that, and then some part is exactly the same structure of a superclass. That's the idea of a subclass. Then you can define a subclass constructor. Before that, let's delete those ones for now, and let's define C1 new car like that. So as we know that default constructor will be called, we didn't give a default constructor, so there's no problem with that. However, it is related with the superclass as well. For superclass, suppose we only need a constructor that takes a string and integer. Then what will happen if I go back to the test code or car? The car class is in error. By looking at car and main, there's no reason to be an error because the default constructor is assumed. And if I don't give a constructor at all, that is okay. But what the error says, if I move the pointer over the error line, implicit super constructor is undefined. What it means is that, recall that if I don't give a constructor, it assumes a default constructor. So far it's the same, but the default constructor itself is an error. The reason is in the subclass, remember car is a subclass of a vehicle. In subclass constructor, if you don't call any superclass constructor, it is assumed that it calls the default super constructor. So keyword super in parentheses is to call superclass constructor. So at this moment, the superclass constructor takes two parameters only. So if I call super with a blank, the vehicle class has no default constructor available. That's an error. So in subclass, in the constructor, if you do not provide a super call, then default one is assumed. Default super call is implied. So if you don't give a super call at all, default one is assumed, but in the vehicle, default construct is not there, so we are in error. That's what it shows. So how you should fix is that in the vehicle class, either you should provide the default constructor, then let me clean up, error disappears, and there's no problem with that. Another solution is if you don't want to give a default constructor, then you should give explicit superclass constructor call. Super saying that not available and the 0. So now explicitly I'm calling this constructor so that all errors are gone. So here Java language requirement or semantic is that in subclass constructor, if you don't call superclass constructor explicitly, default constructor call is assumed. So in a superclass, if you do not provide the default constructors, that will become an error.